A paradigm comes from the Greek root paradigma. It basically means a pattern, a model, a representation, something that stands for something else. It comes from the mental image you have in your mind of the way things are out there. And the images we carry in our heads of the way things are, of reality, come basically from our own backgrounds, our own experiences. All of us think we see the world as it is. In fact, we see the world as we are. We project onto the outside world, our environment, the people we associate with, including how we see ourselves. We project out of our own conditioning experiences, our background, a certain representation, a certain model, a certain set of expectations, a certain assumption on that reality out there. And we think that's the way it is. I might describe myself or you or a situation as if I am describing it as it is. In fact, I am describing myself, that is, my perceptions, my frame of reference, my worldview, my value system, my autobiography, and I'm projecting it upon the outside. Now let me give a very simple layman's way of looking at a paradigm. It is a map, like a map of this hotel, or a map, let's say, of Portland. I'll ask this gentleman. What would you do if you came here to Portland and you have no information at all about this place, and you were given a map where you rented the car, and it was a map of Seattle, but on the top it said Portland? What would you do? So you don't know otherwise. You've never been here, you have no other source of information.
I would hopefully ask for a little bit more direction other than just what's on that map. Maybe have them start me out.
Okay, the person at the desk said, "Sorry, sir, that's all we have, and it's late at night. Good luck to you. Here's the keys to your car. It's right across the street. It's in number 14. And if you'll follow this map, you'll be able to find this hotel that you want to get to." Okay, now just assume that you call your buddy here up on the phone, and he knows that you've got that map, and he says to you, what's your first name?
Keith.
Keith, try harder. You're tired. So now you double your speed. What's going to happen?
I'm going to get nowhere twice as fast.
You call him back in a state of total despair and discouragement, and you say to him, "I have never been so confused and so lost in my life, and I am following this map to the hilt. And I have doubled my speed. I'm lost twice as fast." He senses you're discouraged. You read it down. You're almost ready to give up. It's despairing. And he says to you, "Think positively." He gets you just jazzed right out of your gourd. I mean, he says, "You can do this thing, rise to the occasion. Do it." I do it.
That'll do it.
Now you don't even care you're lost, right?
That's right. I'm happy lost.
That's what a paradigm is. You see, a paradigm is the map you have in your mind. Once you have an accurate map, then your behavior and your attitude matter. See, what we call maps are usually assumptions of the way things are. Assumptions of the way things are represent just, that's what reality is. You don't question that. I remember I was giving a speech a little while back, and there was someone on the front row, just constantly talking to another person. And my mother was 2 rows behind, and she was so upset that here her precious son was being so ignored, so blatantly, so openly, constantly, and would not end. From the very moment I began to the end of my speech, just constant talking. And it just totally discombobulated her own listening, and she felt like taking her purse and reaching 2 rows ahead. Anyway, she went up afterwards to the person that was running the conference and, "Did you see that? Did you see what was happening? Can you believe that right there on the front row that..." "Yeah, I know. She's Korean. That's her translator." I was on a subway, very, very large metropolitan city. Sunday morning, it's quiet, sedate. Bunch of young kids run into the subway. Father follows. He sits near me. The kids just go crazy on that subway, running up and down, turning people's papers aside, just raucous and rude. I'm sitting there, oh, I can't believe this. He does nothing. Now look at my attitude, see? Attitude, you try to control. But look what I could see. After a few minutes, attitude went into behavior. "Sir, do you think you could control your children a little? They're very upsetting to people." "Oh, yeah." He lifted his head as if to come to an awareness of what was happening. "Yeah. I don't know, I just guess I should. We just left the hospital. Their mother died just about an hour ago, and I guess they don't know how to take it, and frankly, I don't either." Imagine the paradigm shift that took place there. Imagine now what the attitude and the behavior would be based upon that paradigm. Can you see why paradigms are deeper than attitude or behavior? And you know, even though we're talking here in personal and interpersonal ways, the same thing takes place throughout our whole society. Thomas Kuhn, in his brilliant book, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, points out so powerfully and consistently all the significant breakthroughs were breakwiths, old ways of thinking. Einstein, who rewrote physics, he made this brilliant statement: "These significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them." You see, it causes us to be reflective and introspective, to explore our own paradigms. Most people focus upon behavior and upon attitude. And both of those are, of course, very important. But far more fundamental than either behavior or attitude is a paradigm. How many of you here have ever been to the crazy mirror room in the carnival? Well, what if that was the only source of information you had on your body? This weird caricature. I mean, it showed me without any hair, if you can believe it. See, most people's self-maps are a function of the social mirror. They live out of the social mirror and their memory. A mother the other day said to me, "I cannot believe my child." All of a sudden, she turns 17, and she's like a different person. I have never seen anyone so uncooperative, so rebellious, so angry, so unwilling to do anything to help us at home, or to even be open to influence at all. Now, what is happening to the map or the paradigm in her head? And what do you do when you have that? You act upon it. That is the image that you have in your head of this person. It's the map you have of this person. Now, someone could say to you, just as I did here, try harder. Try to be more positive. But as long as a person carries that map, that image of this other person in their head, they're going to treat them that way. As soon as they treat them that way, the tendency is for people to respond accordingly. It's called the self-fulfilling prophecy. People live up to the social mirror that surrounds them. Now, I said to this mother, notice how you see your daughter. Well, it's not how I see her, it's the way she is. Potentially, is she capable of so much more? Oh, yes, I know that. Why don't you see her in terms of her potential? Is not her potential part of the reality of her life? Isn't it really the larger part? Where the present manifestation, as she goes through, say, the emotional ups and downs of her teenage so-called identity crisis, you could live out of your imagination and out of a map, a paradigm, a view based upon her potential, which you deeply really believe in. Yeah, but what do I do with all this behavior and the totally unwillingness to cooperate, to do her part? Observe your paradigm. Observe the map you have of her. I remember I was in a situation like that. One of our teenage sons, just between the grade school and junior high, was just not performing. He wasn't adequate in any area. Athletically, people would fall apart with laughter watching. Almost swinging the bat before the ball was pitched. Academically, not only wouldn't do well on tests, couldn't even begin to take them. Socially, sometimes very embarrassing. Now look at the evidence we have. And Sandra and I, my wife, would talk about this. Well, maybe every family deserves their one. But we cared about this boy, and we were very worried. And I remember one time talking about this same subject in Armonk, New York. And I was talking about a study which opened up the whole field of what's called the self-fulfilling prophecy, where a computer in England called the Bright Group dumb, essentially. Here's the teachers. It's the Bright Group over here. You've got 120, 130 IQ. They love education. They love learning. You'll really enjoy them. This group here, you can kind of tell when you just look at their faces. This group, they're very fine people too, but they don't have the same candle power, and you have to respect that. Now notice what's happening. I'm talking as if I'm describing reality, right? This is the way they are. And they buy it. And they act on it for a period of several months. In other words, it becomes their view, their paradigm. But you know what? Several months later, they discovered there was a computer mistake of some kind, and the two groups were switched. They immediately tested, without telling anything to anybody. This group here went up something like 18 points. This group went down 14 points. The self-fulfilling prophecy. Our self-maps, our self-paradigms, are so much a function of the social mirror. A reversal based upon expectancy, paradigms, the mental representation, the maps held by these people. That is the significance of paradigms. And you notice how behavior and attitude flow out of how you see. Well, anyway, I was literally teaching this like I'm teaching you right now. And in my mind, I was thinking of my boy. Is it possible that the problem is in my paradigm? That the problem is with me, not my boy? Well, I talked with my wife when I returned home from that trip, and I said, you know, I'm just wondering if the social mirror from you and I are not major contributors to these difficulties and these problems, this lack of ability to cope. We found that we were to some degree trying to get social mileage out of our kids' good behavior. See, that was part of our motive, of what people thought of us about our children. We liked the way they would speak well of us because of the performance of our children. We worried what would happen if they didn't live up to it. We see what we seek. So we explored our motives and said, this is not what we seek. We began to see him differently, as a person precious in his own right, not to be compared with anyone else, not to get into the social mirror of comparison against timetable, social agenda. He could easily be a late bloomer with tremendous potentialities that does not test out well in some areas. We don't know. It's just a whole big area of potential. And we were trying to put labels upon it. You see what I mean by the tendency is to project out of our own experiences, like a home movie, to project it onto someone else and to label. But we never explored our own motive. We never became reflective and introspective. Things were going well with the others, but all of a sudden, something threw us out of our standard operating procedure, and we couldn't just easily gloss over by psyching him up with PMA stuff. Come on, think positively. You know, keep your eye on the ball when it comes now. All right, now, then you swing. That's okay, son, don't worry about it. Get off his back, you know. You made mistakes. Okay, you're all fine, son. Then privately we talk with each other, say, oh, what have we got here? Duplicitous, unprincipled, as if he had no intrinsic merit and worth. That was the hardest part of the therapy, was dealing with self, exploring our own paradigms, loosening them up. But when you try to have people, to possess them, to own them, and to have their performance reflect on your reputation, your basic motive structure drives the paradigm of how you see that person, because you'll see them through this social mirror frame of reference. And then you get into the self-fulfilling prophecy. Hopefully, our humility, our willingness to surface the assumptions we make about life and to challenge them has been stirred up, particularly when it comes to our maps of ourself, of our loved ones, of our boss, of our work associates, of other people. And then, out of that humility, to say to the other person, how do you see it? What is your view? What is your perspective? What is your frame of reference? What is your opinion? And you constantly get a better sense of the way things are. You get a better and better paradigm.